Hey everyone, this is Grayson Hester, the Communications Director for the Faith Community. And if my accent sounds particularly twangy, particularly fried at the moment, it's because I am in East Tennessee at my hometown of Jefferson City for the duration of the quarantine. So by this point, it's looking like I'll be here for the rest of time. So it's nice knowing y'all down there in Georgia, but Tennessee is now my new home apparently. So this is Weekend Warriors. This is the segment of our Daily Bread series in which we talk about the various media forms that we are currently enjoying that are getting us through this quarantine. And the Daily Bread series is a daily series where, unlike everyone else in the world, we're not actually baking bread, but we are sharing with you. And if you do, side note, if you do show up, please say hey. Just leave some comments so I know that you are watching and interacting. So yeah, Daily Bread is essentially our offering as the faith community to you wherever you are. Hey Tierney, good to see you. Just offering some tips to help get us through quarantine, something that we've never been through before. So we're making this up as you're making this up, and hopefully we're making something good. So on Mondays, we have the Homebound Homily. Hey Ariana. We have the Homebound Homily, which is just a short 10 to 15 minute word of hope. Last week we had Myron Randall deliver a fire word, that, not hellfire and brimstone, just fire, as the kids say. That really was truly incredible. Hey, Dr. Garber, Michelle, Dr. Garber. My Southern mom, at our Holy Smoke session earlier today, popped in to tell Myron. She was like, hey Myron, just want to let you know that you've got a Sunday school full of white church ladies just saying hallelujah and saying amen because of your message. So if it's good enough for a Sunday school class of white Southern church ladies, then it's good enough for us. On Tuesday, we have our prayers of the people. Pretty self-explanatory. We just intercess on people's behalf and bring some prayers to God. On Wednesdays, we have our meditation moment, which has been led so far by Callie Coffin-Friels. It's been amazing. Been such a, yes, they have been fire. Thanks, Ariana. They have been such a wonderful moment of peace and centeredness and breathing. On Thursdays, we have our Therapy Thursday, which provides tips and tricks on how to make sure our mental health is surviving and thriving. Hey, Michelle. And not just simply enduring through anxiety through these understandably anxious times. On Saturdays, we have our Bible and Beyond, which will be tomorrow at 4:00. We're discussing the question of, is all Scripture inspired? So that we'd like to take the softball here in the faith community. We're basing it off of the second most popular 3:16 verse, which is 2 Timothy 3:16, and I know you'll want to be there for that. So be on the lookout in your newsletters for the Zoom link to our Bible and Beyond series, the sub-series being Context. If you take a text out of its context, all you have left is a con. And then the next Saturday, we're going to have worship. The theme is to be determined, but I'm sure it will be something radical and much needed for these times. And then on Sundays, we have Corona Cookbook, which is sharing recipes and ingredients that you need to have on stock and in your cabinet for these unusual days where we may not have as many choices in the grocery store as usual. And then this Sunday, we are doing our second Faith and Film of the week. As long as we're in quarantine, we're going to up our Faith and Film count to 2 times per month as opposed to just once. We are watching 1995's Bad Boys. I was born in 1995, but just ask any of my elementary school teachers, and I was not a bad boy, never went to detention, never pulled a card, which was a disciplinary system. Can talk to you more about that later. But 1995's Bad Boys is what we are watching. So join us at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time, EDT, on our Facebook Faith and Film Connection group page. And the movie is streaming on Netflix. It's this really awesome website that has so many movies and TV shows. If you haven't checked it out, you should. It's great. But today is Weekend Warriors. And that is, again, where we share media recommendations. And I honestly think I thought I was going to have more time for TV than I've had, because somehow my school and my work found my email address and has just been blowing it up. and I haven't had nearly as much time as I thought I would when the world is canceled. So that's been slightly disappointing. But in the free time that I do have, I have been, I think, seeking comfort more than anything. I know a lot of people are watching Tiger King, which I'm still deciding whether I want to watch, because part of me is like, am I just saying, yeah, animal abuse is okay as long as I'm entertained by it? And part of me is like, but it's what everyone's talking about, and I, for one, cannot be left out. So I haven't watched Tiger King, but I've really been seeking comfort and shows that I have already watched before, since days are so uncertain. It gives me something certain. And so some of the things that I've been watching on the tele are, of course, I'm a millennial, so I've been watching The Office. This is my third rewatch in my lifetime, which I know is kind of amateur. A lot of people are on like their sixth or seventh. I know Pastor Christian Smith and the First Lady, Pamela Merritt Smith, they watch it every day, and I'm in that boat too. If you haven't watched The Office, now's your time, because in 2021, if everything goes back to normal, the crisis of that year is going to be that NBC Universal is going to move The Office, forcibly take, I should say, The Office from Netflix to their new streaming platform, which is called, regrettably, Peacock. Don't Google that. And so might as well get it in while you can. And as Michael would say, that's what she said. And so I'm loving The Office. It's hilarious. It's heartwarming. I notice something new every time I watch it through. I identify with different characters every time I watch it. SGN, some good news network. Michelle, I have been watching that with John Krasinski, who plays Jim. It's been great. Loved it. Thank you for the recommendation. I've also been watching my favorite show of all time, which is Breaking Bad. I just, lighthearted, wholesome watch for these sunny days. It's my favorite show of all time. I cannot recommend it highly enough. It is beautiful and tragic and Shakespearean and just perfectly written. It is intense and funny and a perfectly told story. I could gush about it. I could talk about it for the next however long, but I won't. Breaking Bad, it's on Netflix. I love it so much. And I'm watching it, again, partially just because I want to, but also because Better Call Saul is a spinoff of it, and I've heard tell that it might be just as good, if not better. So I'm trying to rewatch the series, and then I'm going to watch Better Call Saul. And also the El Camino Breaking Bad movie is on Netflix as well, which I watched earlier and kind of jump-started my desire to watch Breaking Bad again. I'm also, this is something new, I'm watching The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which is delightful. I love it so much, and it's new, but it's comforting, and I'm watching it with my mom and dad, and my mom has already watched it, so it's been fun seeing how she's picked up on new things. And if you haven't watched either Miss Maisel or Breaking Bad, first of all, they're kind of the same show, because A, their titles are alliterative. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Breaking Bad. They're about somebody who is living the life they're supposed to in the class that they're locked in. So Miss Maisel is locked in the bougie class. Walter White is locked in, and his name's alliterative too. They're both locked in their respective classes, and then a crisis, and I'm not going to go into it anymore, but a crisis sort of wakes them out of it, and then they participate in something that they have to hide from their families, and they slowly get locked into, or further and further, in some kind of underworld that has them interact with a class different of their own. So it's really interesting that Miss Maisel and Breaking Bad are kind of the same show. And on that note, I'm also watching Ozark, which is freaking incredible. Not as good as Breaking Bad, but it fills a Breaking Bad shaped hole in my heart for just gritty, bloody, brutal drug dramas, which, looking at me is my specialty, clearly. But on that note, Ozark and Schitt's Creek are the same show as well, because it's about rich people coming from the city to the country and then learning to adapt to their surroundings and to befriend, for very different reasons, the locals, and to, again, be in a different class than they're used to, and sort of change the town and change themselves to very different results and with very different tones. But Ozark and Schitt's Creek are the same show. Breaking Bad and Miss Maisel are the same show. So I would recommend watching all of them. They're amazing. Schitt's Creek is so wholesome. The series finale was just recent, and it was perfect. And on that note of perfect finales, The Good Place was also just amazing. One of the best finales I've ever seen. I cannot recommend The Good Place enough. It is my favorite comedy ever. And it is a really great watch for these days, for times where we don't know how to be good people when truth is so indiscernible and under attack, and when we're locked in our homes, and how do we care for ourselves and for our neighbors, which is, of course, the basis of the faith community. And it's also just funny and beautiful and powerful. And so a quarantine watch that I would probably recommend above any other would be The Good Place. As far as podcasts go, my absolute favorite podcast is Dead and Lovely Horror Movie Podcast. It is by one of my really good friends and former guitar teacher back when I was in high school. His name's Ben Eller. He also has great stuff on YouTube. Pretty significant following as well. It's Ben Eller and Steven Spratling, two guys who grew up in this area of Jefferson City, Tennessee. Hey, Marielle. And they just go deep dives into horror movies. Every week they pick a different movie. Sometimes it's the classics that we all know and love. Some of us hate, some of us like The Shining, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Rosemary's Baby, things like that. Actually, I don't know if they've covered that one, but they do the classics. But then they also do newer movies, so they have reviews about Get Out, Us, Hereditary, It Follows, some of the really great horror movies that I know and love from recent times. And they do so from a very progressive lens, and they do it with really insightful analysis. And they're really funny. They drink beer while they do it and talk about it, so it's very white, I will say. If they're drinking beer and talking about horror movies, it's two straight white guys. So a caveat, but I love it. Partially because it's one of my best friends, but also because it's just a really great listen. I love The Read. Although I haven't been watching it or listening to it these days because Kid Fury and Crystal's tone can sometimes be dramatically hyperbolic and a little fatalistic. And it's funny. It's just not what I'm looking for these days. But most of the time, The Read is one of my top podcasts. I love them so much. They're hilarious, they're insightful, they're wise, they give great advice, they know everything there you ever didn't want to know about pop culture, and it's also great, especially for me, to constantly get a black and queer perspective in my ear holes for hours at a time. So The Read, cannot recommend it highly enough. They were supposed to be in Atlanta, I think. No, they're going to be there in 2 weeks. But they won't be. So hopefully they will come to Atlanta at a later date when Miss Rona decides to go back to sleep or go over back to hell from where she came. The Read is wonderful. I love Still Processing, which is also hosted by two queer black people in a much more soft tone, much more... I guess the way I would describe it is The Read is more like a night out at a club, or like a sloppy night drinking in with your friends, and then Still Processing is like going to a really fancy bar and buying like a $20 cocktail and just sipping it. Like, you get the same effect, and they're both great, but different kinds of moods. But I love Still Processing. It's a New York Times media podcast, really great to listen to, very soothing to listen to. Let's see. I love My Brother and Me, which is put on by the McElroy brothers. It is about an hour and a half, and it's just three brothers from West Virginia, so again, very white, who just talk about really funny stuff, give really crappy advice to questions from Yahoo, and it's just a joy to listen to, I must say. I also love Office Ladies, which is Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey, who play Pam and Angela respectively on The Office. They go through one episode per week and give behind-the-scenes tours, so to speak, and insights from every episode. Really fun to listen to. Also just a bright spot in my day. Still Processing, My Brother and Me, Dead and Lovely, and Office Ladies are what I have been listening to recently. And as far as movies, I haven't been watching movies as much lately because of TV shows. And video games, I'm way out of the loop. Haven't bought a console since the Xbox 360 way back in like 2006. So I'm way behind there. But yeah, that should give you some of my favorite movies, or not movies, TV shows and podcasts to listen to as we get through these times. But remember, there is nothing wrong with not listening to the news for a day, for listening to your body and what it needs in these times. And if you don't need to work, and if you don't have to work, and if you can't work because time is meaningless now and days are meaningless now, and sometimes it feels like work is meaningless, although if you are lucky enough like me to still be employed, it's definitely meaningful. But it can feel like as the world is ending as we know it, a new world is being birthed, like, why do I need to submit this spreadsheet? And that's okay. Let yourself just watch and listen and relax, because we need people who are relaxed and we need people who are whole. And feverishly working and feverishly keeping up with every stat doesn't look like wholeness to me. But watching a show about a chemistry teacher that murders people and becomes a meth kingpin, that's wholesome to me. So yeah, if you have any recommendations for podcasts, music, movies, TV, video games, any comic books, any media that you're consuming these days, please submit it in the comments. Let us know on the Facebook page of the Faith Community. Again, this has been Daily Bread, Weekend Warriors. I'm Grayson Hester, pronouns he, him, his, the Communications Director for the Faith Community, coming at you live from Jefferson City, Tennessee, Dolly Country, as I like to call it. And this has been Weekend Warriors. Hope to see you tomorrow for the Bible and Beyond, our contact series. And hope to see you Sunday for our virtual watch party of Bad Boys. And then see you next week for Daily Bread. Please stay well, please stay safe, and please be kind to yourself and others. And we'll get through this together.